And there it is. All right.
Now
So
we
yeah,
are.
so Chris, I'm from Chicago, as you know, and I'm coming to you live from my Star Wars room.
Woo. It always looks so cool.
And I think our visitor from farthest away, who did you get your nap today, Cherish?
Kinda. I'm not
What time is
nap
it?
taker.
What?
It's 2 a.m.
Oh,
Did
Oh
you
my
get your nap
gosh.
or no? You said you were gonna
No.
nap. No.
I did say that, but I'm like, since I was a kid, I was terrible at taking naps, and I never grew out of just resting.
Are you in
Yes.
Sweden then?
Sorry?
Are you in Sweden?
I am, yes.
Oh, wow.
So she's coming to
I
us.
say let's have a
from-
writer's retreat at her house.
Right?
She's coming to us from Sweden. Yeah.
People.
How cool. I'm coming to you from North Central Florida.
Okay.
Right. So Chris is from Florida, and then Angie, where are you coming in from?
Cleveland, Ohio.
Cleveland. That's right, because we had the calling dibs on the parking.
Midwest. Yeah. Nice, gray, snowy Midwest. Yes.
And Sarah, where are you calling? Oh, wait, you're drinking your water. Where are you calling in from, Sarah?
We're in Tennessee right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
That will
you and your husband
change
travel
very
quite a
quickly.
bit in his job. Yeah. So Tennessee right now.
Tennessee
That
right
changes.
now.
How often does that change?
It depends on the year. I know we're supposed to be in 3 different places this year, but we lived in
Wow.
like 2 years ago. We were in like 7 different places, several different cities.
In 1 year?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Oh my goodness.
we travel a lot. Yeah,
Yeah. Well, then you get to see a lot of neat, new things.
we enjoy it. Yeah, it's fun. Are
And
we
then-
live? Am I telling this to everybody?
Yes, you are, by the way.
Oh, hi everybody.
Oh.
We
So
travel a
just
lot.
assume Sarah may be coming to a town near you.
This is just kind of the warm
I
up as
probably
people start
will.
to join us. So as people start to join us, we're just checking in really quickly with where everybody's at, and as I and Marissa and I are both in the Chicagoland area, and Anne Marie, are you
I'm Chicago.
still in
Suburbs.
Chicago
Oh,
as
yay.
well? And then Cherish was letting us know it's 2 a.m. in Sweden, and we're so happy she's here with us.
But I used to live in Toledo, Ohio.
Oh,
Ohio.
We'll let you in the
And
club then.
and Bloomington Normal, Illinois. So
Oh.
all right. Okay, so Marissa, if you can stay, or if you want to go, you can go, and we'll see you later.
I'll probably leave, but let me know if there are any problems. And have a wonderful night. I think there are already 15 people watching, so woohoo!
All right. Woo-hoo. Thank you.
Happy Friday.
Bye. So, hello and good evening, and welcome to Destination Romance. I am your travel guide for the evening. I feel like I should get a clipboard like that girl on Love Boat. What was her name?
McCoy. Yes.
Yeah, Julie,
Julie. Yeah, she'd be like Julie.
cruise
I
ship
love
director.
The cruise director. So I'm going to work on leading us through the evening. And for those of you joining us and watching, you can drop your comments and questions in the chat on YouTube. Let us know where you're calling in from, and feel free to, add any insight or questions for the various authors. I can't guarantee we'll get to all of them, but we'll definitely try. So to begin with tonight, we just talked about where everybody was from, but I do want to take a quick moment to start with each of us introduce. They're going to get a chance to say the book that has kind of brought them here this evening, the travel book or the series that brought them to the show tonight. So let's start with Cherish. And Cherish, can you tell us a little bit about the book?
I can. It's right there. It's called The Right Escape. And it was my debut romance novel from 2019. And it takes place in Ireland, in Connemara area, Connemara Peninsula, Galway, and a small, tiny town named Tullycross. So
Galway, that's a coastal town, yes?
Yeah, well, kind of, yeah. So like a university, huge city, like really big and cool and everything. A little bit of the novel takes place in Galway, but most of the novel takes place on a coastal town called Tullycross.
Mm-hmm. I love it. I've been to Ireland. I would love to go live in Ireland, but you know.
Me too.
and I like just to go and write. I'm gonna go off to write for a while in Ireland. Yes, sign me up. So that's yeah. If you want to take a little trip to Ireland, you need to check out Cherish's book. And then next we have Angie, you can tell us now. Go ahead. You tell us about your book.
Sure. So I'm Angie Hockman, and my book shipped, which just came out on Tuesday. It's my debut, like super exciting. Yay. So it's a romantic comedy, and it's about a workaholic marketing manager, and she works for an adventure cruise line, and she's up for the promotion of her dreams. But so is her nemesis, the remotely working social media manager. And they get sent down to the Galapagos Islands on a company cruise to decide the promotion. They have to go down there and come up with a proposal to boost sales in the region. Best proposal wins the promotion. So my book takes place in the Galapagos Islands.
That's exciting. And happy book birthday to several of you who had book releases on Tuesday.
Like Sarah, yes.
Sarah and Anne-Marie.
Anne-Marie and you.
Yeah.
Ooh.
So very exciting week. Anne-Marie, can you tell us a little bit about your book and where you're taking us?
Hi, yeah. So my name is Anne-Marie Walker, and my book is Happy Singles Day. And it is set almost exclusively in a fictional island off the coast of North Carolina called Aurelia Island. And it's about a workaholic professional organizer named Paige Parker, who is taking her first vacation in about 5 years to celebrate Singles Day. She's proudly single, doesn't want a man in her life because they've been nothing but heartache. And she books this adorable little bed and breakfast, goes down to Aurelia Island, and realizes she didn't read the fine print. There's no cars on the island. And that's just the start of her trouble, because when she gets to the bed and breakfast, it has really gone downhill, because Lucas Croft is living there with his 4-year-old daughter, and he has really let it go since his wife died 2 years ago. In fact, he had not even activated the listing. His sister did. She reactivated the listing to try to get him some funds to hold on to the place. So we've got the grumpy, very hot innkeeper who didn't want a guest, and we've got the very uptight, neat freak guest who doesn't want to be there. And of course, then there's a storm, and they're trapped, and puppies have to be rescued, and hijinks ensue.
Hijinks ensue. So that's the Outer Banks, kind of, right? The Outer Banks of North Carolina. All right. So we're all over the place. Ireland, the Galapagos, Outer Banks of North Carolina. And Sarah, where are you taking us?
I will take you to Alaska. Hi, I'm Sarah Morgenthaler. I'm the author of the Moose Springs, Alaska series, and my third book came out this week, Tuesday. What day is it? Enjoy the View. And it's been an exciting week. And Enjoy the View is my mountain climbing rom-com. And I had so much fun with this book. It's set outside the town of Moose Springs, who they hate their tourists. So when a actress turned filmmaker wants to film a documentary in town, they kick her out of town. So she hires the local hottie, a sexy Hagrid type, and they go up.
I love when you say that.
Her and sexy Hagrid, they and their crew go up this mountain, and
And
there's a
hijinks
marmot.
ensue.
There's adventure and sexy times as much as you can when it's cold.
I'm totally like, she needed to lead with sexy Hagrid. You had me at sexy Hagrid.
If you see the audiobook,
too.
if you see the audiobook cover of Enjoy the View, he's got this cute little man bun.
Well, and he has this like itty bitty little one right there, but his audiobook man bun is like straight up.
Oh man, I have
It's
to
more
go
extra.
Love it.
So from Alaska, Priscilla, you're taking us down to.
We are to the southernmost point in the United States. We're going to Key West for my Keys to Love series. Island Affair released, it was April, but it came out like the end of April, so it was in May 2020. And then Anchored Hearts, I just got the ARCs, so it's been fun to stand them up side by side. But Anchored Hearts comes out April 27th, and it'll be print, digital, and audio. So it's not available yet, but you can actually, next week, Book It First is going to have a giveaway. So I'll be posting about it next week, like 100 ARCs to give away for Anchored Hearts. But right now, if you want to head to Key West, you can pick up Island Affair. It's actually and it wasn't before, but now it's in Walmart. It's part of their like Valentine's special section. So
That
that's
was
been
so
fun.
cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
Well, because with the pandemic, we don't have a Barnes and Noble here in our town, even though we're a college town. And my Books a Million, they like said they cut back on a lot of orders. So I got to see Island Affair in Target once. Then when the first 2 times I went, they were out of it, and then they got it again. So you didn't get like the normal like going into the bookstore and seeing your book baby there on the shelf. So one of my friends texted me, "Oh my gosh, you're in Walmart!" So of course I masked up and drove to Walmart. But so Island Affair is a fake relationship romance. Both of them will feature the Navarro familia. So they're second, third generation Cuban familia, born and raised in Key West. The siblings it's 3 brothers and a sister. They're all a family of firefighter paramedics. And so Luis is the second brother. He would tell you he's alpha. I'll tell you he's got some cinnamon roll inside of him. He's not going to own up to that. And he's got some stuff in the past that he's not wanting to deal with. He's got a bit or a lot of it of a savior complex. And so he's more interested in helping other people and not dealing with himself. And he runs into a social media influencer, Sarah, who has just landed in Key West for a family vacation, and her family's a little bit judgmental about what she does and other things. You know, family, there's always drama. And she stood up by her boyfriend, and the last thing she wants to do is arrive. I know.
So
the last thing she wants to do is
Chris,
go.
the next thing we're going to talk about is I kind of want to see,
Oh,
when we think of, pardon?
Then let me not reveal something, like answer a question early.
So, when we ourselves as people choose a vacation, there's something that inspires us, something that makes us want to go there. So for you, what inspired you to want to write about Key West?
We lived in Key West. So throughout my junior high school, for about 20 years of me growing up, and Key West was home. So even like when I went to college or when I got married, if I was going home, it was home to Key West. So I knew that I always wanted to write a book. Actually, my first romance I ever wrote that was like bad for a whole bunch of reasons, so it'll never see the light of day, but it was set in Key West. So I knew I wanted to write a series or at least a book that would be able to take readers home to what's always feels like, even though we haven't lived there now for a while, it still feels like home to me.
Okay. Sarah, how about you with Alaska? What inspired you to want to write a series set in Alaska?
I've always loved mountainy areas. We grew up in Indiana, which is like flat as a pancake. So like my whole adult life, I've been gravitating towards places that are not flat as a pancake. And so I was actually up in Alaska working on a book a couple years ago. Ooh. And a friend who went with me was like, "Hey, let's do some sightseeing, let's do some excursions." And it ended up being one of those like Lemony Snicket series of unfortunate events where it was really fun, but it was also like we had a couple too stupid to live moments, and
I'm going to ask you about some of your experiences.
You ask me about Bob at some point. You got to bring up Bob.
I may want to ask him. I wasn't sure if you were going to be willing to share Bob's stories, but if you are, then
I'm an open book. But after this really, really fun, all these fun excursions that just, we had a really great time. And I was like, you know what, this would be really fun to write a story about tourists in this gorgeous, wild, beautiful place that I just love to go and love the tax write-off of going there and writing a book about it. And,
isn't that the dream, right? It's for work. I have to go.
It's for work. Yeah. I have to see whales for work.
And actually, Angie, that's part of Shift. It is for work. They're going to the Galapagos for work. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us what inspired you to choose that location for your book?
Yeah. So I have some experience working in the travel industry, and I had the great good fortune in 2016 of traveling to the Galapagos Islands. And I had, I was familiar with it before, but I actually got there in person, and it is just such a magical, amazing place. It's unlike anywhere else. The wildlife is incredible. It's so unique. And I was really touched by that experience. And when I sat down to write a romantic comedy. I decided, I really want to write a romantic comedy. I was really feeling like enemies to lovers, office romance, but I wanted to do something a little bit different. I thought, well, where could I set it that's a little bit unique, that speaks to me and that has some personal meaning to me? I thought, oh my gosh, well, the Galapagos Islands, it's somewhere that's a little bit off the beaten path. And I absolutely love it. It was a place that really touched my heart. And so then there we go. That's how we ended up with Shipped.
Nice. So it's places that touch your heart. So Cherish in Ireland touch your heart. Is that why you chose it?
Yeah. I mean, my husband and I spent a month there because his university had a, what do you call it, learning abroad situation. So he and I took, 15 students to the west of Ireland to do like a study abroad situation.
Wow.
Yeah, and we stayed in these little cottages in Tellycross, and we were like amongst the fields and the cows and
wow.
2 pubs, and it was the tiniest village ever. And every evening we would go to the pub and chill. And since I was the only Black woman of the village, it was it was a fun experience just to sit and talk to these people about, like, what are you doing here? And honestly, it felt like I was born in Arkansas. The Irish folk of that county really reminded me of Southern folk, just like, we're going to talk your ear off about anything and you're not going to leave immediately like you want to. And I now understand like the Irish goodbye of just like, you just got to sneak out
I was just
of the
thinking
pub.
about the Irish goodbye when you said that.
Yes. And then like after that, we went from that tiny village to Galway, and then Dingle, and then Limerick. So we went to like 4 cities and then headed back home. But originally, like, I was just writing travel essays. I hadn't even thought about writing a romance novel until, like a year later.
So was this, so that like really inspired, like, not just Ireland, not just inspired that book, but inspired you to write romance all together. Is that what you're saying?
I had dabbled in romance, like in a salacious way, back in the day, but I felt like Ireland is such a romantic country, and there's just so much sensual stuff that you can attribute to that nation and its people, that I thought, instead of something, I don't want to say dry as creative nonfiction like travel writing, I wanted to spice it up a little bit.
Well, we are so glad you did. So if you have not checked out The Right Escape yet, you definitely need to get on that. And so we're going to go from Ireland now back across the pond to the Outer Banks. And Marie, so what inspired you to pick a little B&B in North Carolina?
Well, I needed it to be a place where there weren't cars and that they could be trapped by the weather.
Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah. So it's a fictional island, but we vacationed many times over the years in like the Hilton Head area. So I've spent a lot of time in South Carolina, North Carolina, and there are islands down there that, you load up all your groceries and get on the ferry to go to stay and everything. So my fictional island is sort of a mashup of a couple of different places, but it was driven by that it needed to be February and that we could have the right kind of storm hit. So I was doing a lot of research into it.
Well, this is actually perfect because it leads me to my next question on my itinerary, which is what kind of research you did for the book. And so it sounds like you really, because you chose to have to kind of create your fictional town. So yeah, tell me a little bit about the research that you did and the details that you knew you had to include.
Well, a lot of it I could base on having been in that area, but you want to get it absolutely right. So I'm researching weather patterns. I'm researching, turtles. When did the turtles hatch? Because one of the jokes in it is this woman thinks she's coming to see turtles. And, Lucas is like, I can't feel sorry for a woman who hasn't even bothered to look and realize that turtle season ends in August, or, you know what I mean? So it's like, all these, so I had to find out what it was so I could get it wrong, things like that. And just, all of researching everything about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I do a lot of
Sarah could talk to you a little bit more about that.
I do a lot of pop culture references. It's actually made me so happy because I forgot to mention, but this book came out on Tuesday, and it's made me so happy this week. It's made me. And the audiobook though is not coming out till February 2nd. I kind of wanted to get that out there because I feel really bad. I know some people had placed pre-orders, and I believe it's a COVID-related delay. But I do a lot of pop culture references, and it's made me really happy this week to see people like specifically saying, oh my God, I love the Friends references. And then one person said, she goes, I was thinking the references were kind of dated, and then I realized, oh no, it's what the kid references would have been for like these 28 and 30-year-olds. And so I do that. I'm looking up what TV shows were popular in, looking up, figuring out when they would have been 10 or 12 and what TV shows were popular of them. Because believe me, it's not my cultural references. That would be very good.
That's always an interesting thing to have to kind of shift, right? You're like kind of cultural center to what. That's why I just make my hero like just he's into the 80s just because he's weird. It just makes it easier.
Yeah,
I will text my kids. My girls are in their 20s, so I'll text my girls like, "What's a word?" or "How would you say this?"
So Priscilla, as far as Key West goes, you said you live there. So what kind of research did you do for your series?
Well, I used a lot of, especially now that I'm back in Florida. Before pandemic years, we would, I'd go down once or twice a year, just like to visit friends, or my sister and I would go down there to do the Key West Half Marathon. So I've been, yeah, it's if you're a runner, it's a great first race because it's so flat. And you're like all around, the sun's rising and you're running along the beach. That's real pretty. So I've been, so I've, the island's changed a ton, obviously, since I was a kid back in the 80s. Speaking of the 80s, but for the Keys to Love series, I did, I'm not a firefighter paramedic. Yes, I watched Chicago Fire, right? But we know that's not all how it is. But I do have, there were a group of brothers that went to school with my sister and me. There were five brothers, and 4 of them are all firefighter paramedics. So the Sellers boys were really good about like answering questions, getting on the phone, answering my text messages. But Papi, my dad, and I did take a specific trip down to Key West, and he hung out with his friends, but I got to spend a day doing ride-alongs with 2 of the fire departments there, and and in one of them, so like there's a scene in Anchored Hearts because that's Ana Maria, the sisters, and so at one of the stations there was a female firefighter paramedic, so I got to talk with her, and they let me like dress out in the full gear and do their workout with them, which was really hard.
This is like its
it was
own
fun.
separate romance novel waiting to happen.
It really is. Yeah.
But so that
along
was
with
like
the firefighters in
I
Key
know.
West.
You're right. It could. Maybe there's a spinoff there.
You could,
We'll
I think
I'm in for that. Yeah.
Melanie, can we point out to people, I just wanted to mention that if we look like we're not paying attention, we're trying to watch your comments too. So I just wanted to point out.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, that's fine. So if you see me looking down or anyone else looking down, we're trying to like watch the comments coming through
like a separate run going.
as we can. So as far as, because you lived there and you had more experience there, was there anything specific about Key West, any locations or any landmarks or things like that you really felt were important to include in the book, Pris?
Well, I'll say what's different between book 1 and 2. Book 1, Sarah is a tourist. And so I really tried to, like Luis takes her, they do a tour of the island. And so I tried to hit some of those must-see places for tourists. Also some of the must-see, like my family, whenever we go visit, we have dinner at El Mesón de Pepe. That's right off of Mallory Square. We try to make it to Sunset, to go see it. And that's what a lot of tourists do, but also a lot of locals do. So the scene where Sarah and the first night that they're there, Luis takes them and her family to sunset at Mallory Square, and then they go eat it in Miss on the Pepe, and they dance because there's a live band that plays there. And so we always do that. So for I tried to like get in a mix of like touristy things, but also things that Sarah and Luis stop at South Beach. And so part of that is memories from like my middle daughter and I, when she was an adult, we went down, and so we could hit the bars and all that kind of stuff, you know, as adults, you know. And so like we spent an afternoon at South Beach. The Anchored Hearts, they both grew up there. So that was fun because like they reference hanging out at Higgs Beach and Astro City Park, like we did, because Key West is a great tourist town, but there's not as much stuff to do when I grew up there then, to do for kids. So we would hang out at the beach on Friday night until the cops came at 10 o'clock and kicked you out, right? Then you get in your car and you drive around, and then you'd come back and you'd hang out again until they came back and, you know, kicked you out, or you had to go home because it was curfew kind of thing. So it was, I enjoyed being able to put in little things like that with the second book, because they had both, the couple had grown up there, so they were sharing memories of high school time together.
It's a good and tricky too to be able to like here's the POV of someone who's a tourist versus here's the POV of someone who's a local. And Sarah, you might be able to say something about that, the tourists versus the locals, for your Alaska series.
Yeah, a lot of that's what the basis of Moose Springs really is you have this, you know, Alaskan tourist town that they don't want to be a tourist town. There was this.
That's how they survive. So they kind of have to be.
And you know, and I think that that's kind of relatable though to a lot of places where, you know, you have people who live there year round, and they don't really want certain seasons of just people coming in and just taking over and not respecting the wildlife and not respecting, the laws of the town. And you know, so it's this really, I thought it was like a really fun situation where you can have, you know, a lot of tension between people, and then throw it in a beautiful place and give them big cinnamon rolls and moose. So.
So did you have to do a lot of research about moose and moose behavior, or?
That was fun. Reading about moose was actually really fun research.
They're hella dangerous.
I would say the thing that I had to do the most research for this series was actually this third book that just came out, because it's about mountain climbing. And I love reading about mountain climbing, but I've never gone before. I'm like a hiker, not a climber. So John Krakauer has written a whole bunch of climbing.
Oh, yes.
So, and I just love his voice anyway. So I just like dived into basically like 90% of what Krakauer has written. And that was a lot of my research. You know, a lot about, you know, reading about climbing on Everest, things like that. So it was really fun research. But then, you know, you kind of have to, you know, you put it in, but make sure you're not like going too technical.
Right. And that's the trick, right? Finding the, like, you know, sprinkle in that research without being like, look.
Yes, exactly.
I know these details, like, especially because you spend so much time making sure, like, you know, silly things like, when do the boats have to get pulled out of the lake in Chicago, or, you know, or whatever. It's like,
well, and I messed up the first draft because I made the mountain too tall. And so when they were going up tall, because I wanted to be this dangerous situation as they're filming this documentary, but I made it to the point where they would have had to use supplemental oxygen, and it was just like, it was too technical for their skill sets. And so there was actually some pretty significant revision of the initial draft, just because I took it too far. But it was really fun to write about.
Well, PJ says that she never would have guessed you weren't a climber because you brought it, made it so authentic. And then Cherish, I see your hand up. Did you have something to add?
That's awesome.
But I just wanted to know, like, which mountain in Alaska would this have been?
So what it is I did a 14er, which is any mountain that's above 14,000 feet. But I made it not as tall as Denali. And then I kind of just made it like a more technical climb. I think that was like a little bit of a tougher climb for them, but not quite as popular as Denali, so they could be on the mountain by themselves. So it's this fictional 14er that I made. So that was kind of fun too.
Yes.
I went to school for geology, so building a mountain was like really
Well,
fun.
I'm gonna stop Sarah right there because she's like the lady in Beach Read, where if we let her start talking about rocks, we will never.
I'm gonna
I'll
stop right
talk to you
now.
later about
Yes.
rocks, Sarah.
Yes.
Tara's just like side
Sarah,
conversation.
when I read Beach Read, I thought of you when that character is on the page.
Oh my
'Cause, you know,
gosh, yes. The ant.
the aunt who loves to talk
Yes.
about rocks. Yes. So
That was
Angie,
funny.
you said you were in the travel industry. So what kind of research did you bring to this for your story?
So I didn't actually have to do too much research about the Galapagos just because of the work experience I've had. And I've worked in conservation, supporting projects, working with groups down there. So I was pretty familiar with the islands and the wildlife and some of the environmental challenges that I ended up incorporating into the book. One of the tricky things for me though is like, I'm writing this love story and like my characters are, on this cruise. They go down to the Galapagos Islands, and it's a collection of islands, and each island is pretty different. And they're different like geologically, in ages, and some of them are very lush and some of them are not, it depends. And there's different subspecies of wildlife on the different islands, and you might be doing different things on the islands. And so trying to figure out like, okay, like if they're on this hike, they can have this conversation and, but also trying to make it realistic to where, if you were to travel to the Galapagos, you don't want them going like here, 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 to all these different places. So I did spend some time trying to map out like, okay, like if they're realistically going down on a cruise, which I had been on this cruise with Lindblad Expeditions National Geographic in 2016. So I definitely drew inspiration from that. Was looking back at my itinerary, like, okay, where did I go? And like, what did I see?
That's really convenient to have.
That's when being a
Yeah.
pack rat comes in handy.
Oh, indeed.
Right?
Yes. Yeah. I was like totally digging stuff out of this like bottom drawer in my bedroom in this dresser. Like, okay, what was like my old itinerary here? Yeah. So I was able to like draw from some of my experiences with travel, with work. So I didn't have to go down the rabbit hole of research too much. For the Galapagos, I actually did way more research about Seattle because the book starts in Seattle. It's where my main character, Henley, and the cruise company she works for is based in Seattle. And I had not been there when I actually wrote the book. I was there after I finished the book. I was like, I guess I did like, okay. Like it was definitely tricky. Google Maps was my friend, Google Street View. I was Googling apartments in Seattle. I feel like if my husband would have seen my browser history, he'd been like, what in the world? Like, are you leaving me to move to Seattle? What's going on? So I definitely did a little bit more research. Yeah. About
the Google
that.
Street View is a lifesaver. It is
So
so it's a
much.
little bit creepy how detailed you can get with
Oh yeah, no, I had like a fictional apartment that I had found on apartments.com for my heroine, and I had like plotted out on Street View like if she's walking to work, like what's her view going to be like, and her fictional office down by Puget Sound. Yeah, so
that's amazing that much research like for a travel book was spent on her time at home versus
right.
on the travel.
It was wild, yeah.
So as far as like because you went on this cruise and you had this itinerary, the next thing I wanted to ask about was personal experiences. At that location, or with, that I spoke to you that you wanted to kind of touch on in the story that you wrote. Was there a feel of the place that you were trying to capture? If that makes sense, Angie.
Yeah, definitely. So, the Galapagos Islands, it's most famous for being where Darwin, sailed aboard the HMS Beagle and inspired him to come up with his theory of natural selection. And he went to the different islands and he compared the finches and how their different, beak sizes were evolutionarily adapted to the type of food they ate. So like, it's a very unique place. And there are a lot of endemic species, like meaning species of animals that are found nowhere else on Earth. And the animals there are, not afraid of you. So, it's so you're like walking around in this, big colony of seabirds, and they're not flying away. They're just sort of looking at you. So it's a tremendously special place. I'm sorry, what was the original question? I'm like taking bunny trails. Like,
I think the feel that you're trying to capture is how unique
And
and
I'm like, keep
special.
going,
Thank
keep
you.
going.
I know, I'm like, goodness.
Well, no, you
That's
know they
the
are.
So
fear.
Like,
they could be
I'm
paying you
like,
right now for doing a
yes.
travel
Oh,
commercial.
yeah. Yes. So like
So
when
what it sounds like to me, if I had to kind of condense this, was that you wanted to capture the fact that this was a very unique place.
yes.
So
And
if was there anything in the book
absolutely.
you can think of, like a moment in the book that kind of translated that to your reader?
Yeah, so I absolutely, yeah. I mean, it's a place filled with wonder. Like when you're there and you know, you're among all of these animals, this wildlife, and it's so different. And you get a sense of kind of how small you are as a person in terms of like biological time. And you think of like, wow, I'm hiking through the zebra colony where albatross have nested here generation after generation for millennia, like untold millennia. And how long are they going to keep coming back here even after I'm gone or if people are
Yeah.
gone? Who knows? And it's this feeling of connection with nature, of feeling small, but yet a part of, you know, the larger world, part of ecosystems. It's this feeling of wonder. And also, I mean, the Galapagos is such a special place because the people there have done tremendous work conserving these islands that have been under threat from different environmental challenges like invasive species. And so it's a real story of hope, you know. So I wanted to bring all of these things, you know, where I have this very like ambitious workaholic marketing manager who's very focused on her career, and she goes there and she has an experience that ends up impacting her, and she brings that into her work. And it also kind of makes her realize, like, you know, there's more to life than,
More to
just
life than
grinding
just,
out work
yeah.
all the time.
Perfect.
So yeah, I tried to bring, you know, a little bit of those feelings
That's
into the
cool.
book.
Yeah, so that's shipped, people. If you have not read this yet
Mhm.
or bought it, this
It is so good. It is so
Thank
good.
pick
you.
it
I
up
love
and
that
take
book.
yourself on
Thanks,
vacation.
Sarah.
So Cherish, you actually touched on this a little bit when you were talking earlier about the feel that you had when you were in Ireland and how you wanted and what that experience was like for you. But could you talk a little bit more about, you know, if you had to like try and encapsulate what that feeling was and how you were trying to put that into the book?
Yeah, a lot of Ireland I've learned from my husband, who is Irish American, like everybody else in America is Irish American. um, you know, just the way he interacts with his family just totally translated to the way he interacted with Irish people in Ireland. Just this loud, boisterous, gregarious way of you're friends with every stranger that you've ever met. And I had no choice but to fall into that. And I'm being yelled at about, like, are you from Boston? Have you ever been to Boston? I've got people in Boston. And and so like part of that felt very like familiar because there's that southern hospitality that I recognize and I picked up from. And then, you know, in the book, I hope I do make parallels between Black humor, African American humor, and folklore and whatnot, and Irish humor and folklore. And then I've learned and I researched and I observed that there's a bit of darkness. There's a Black humor, if you will, with Irish humor, and that it's always on the precipice of some kind of doom or forlorn.
That is such an apt description. The book I'm currently writing now is an Irish family that owns a funeral home. So
Okay.
but like the precipice of going dark. Like, but so does the heroine pick up on this when she's there?
I think so. My heroine,
I know.
she's from Chicago, like all of y'all, and and you know, in the span of 24 hours, she's lost her job, and she finds out that her fiance is cheating on her. She has no choice but to
So she's like the start of a
on
country
this-
song as well.
Basically, yeah. And so she has no choice but to go on the one thing that she made a decision on for this wedding. And the decision that she made for this wedding was to take a honeymoon to Ireland. And her fiance was like, why? But she chose that. And now that she's single, she's doing it anyway because, you know, the deposits are paid and the airplane tickets are booked and all that. And so she just has to do it. And of course, she finds herself along the way, and then she finds a very hot professor of literature.
Keep going,
So-
keep going.
So no research was done for that because my husband and I both teach
Why?
Hot
literature.
professor husband.
Missed opportunity.
Oh my goodness.
We both teach literature, so all of it was, what I did as a writer was try to veer back from like the day-to-day grossness of academia and try to make it a little sexier.
Oh my goodness. So
The
Anne-Marie,
Hollywood version.
your town is fictional, your island is fictional, but you said you visited areas like what this place is on vacation many times. Like what was the feel that you were trying to capture?
Well, the one experience, the storm in the book is almost
Right.
a character in of itself. You know, the storm is why they have the forced proximity. And one thing about when you're on pretty much any island is the storms come up quickly, right? And they're nasty. And so I really wanted to capture, you know, the charcoal skies and the swaying seagrass and, you know, the rolling sand dunes and the ships rocking against the dock. And, you know, I've never been to an island that was only by ferry, but even some of the ones that I've been to where you cross the bridge, like if it's storming, like the water's going over the bridge, you know? And there's a very pivotal scene in the book where the puppies, there's a storm drain, there's a rescue involving some puppies. That's why they're named after Ninja Turtles, because they're living in the sewer. But the stakes are very, very high because of the storm, the high surf, you know, the heavy rains, and, you know, power goes out. Like the storm really drives the story. And so I really wanted someone to read that book and feel like they were on an island in a brutal storm.
Interesting. Yeah, yes, that scene with the puppies. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, thank you. Melanie gave a little blurb. Her name's right on the back of the book.
Ooh, nice.
So yes, Cherish.
Storms. I want to say storms are up there with like only one bed for me as tropes.
Power outage.
Oh yeah,
power
well, right,
outage,
because
places.
they often lead to only one bed, like snowstorm, thunderstorm, anything that forces, and just like the power of nature. Well, when I think of storms in Ireland, I just think of The Quiet Man and that very romantic windswept
Oh, by
moment.
the way, everyone's getting comments about their research. I got a comment that I have a very sizable wine glass. So, hey mom, if you're watching, be proud.
I'm having Jameson.
Oh, that's
I'd
very.
like to point out
I'm
that
having a beach blonde
Nice,
ale.
yes.
A beach blonde
And
ale.
making sure you're going with the Irish whiskey that I approve. Yeah. So I wanted to make sure, so we get to Sarah. So Sarah, you've had some experiences on your vacation to Alaska.
Oh, I froze. Wait, hold on, I froze. Are you back?
You're back.
You're
back.
Okay,
forever.
say it again.
Mhm.
I looked at my water and then my whole screen froze.
And that is so how everything works with we've been doing Zooms now for almost a year, right? And it's like everything is fine until it's your turn to talk, and then something will go wrong. But as far as, because you went to Alaska, you went on a trip with a friend, and you had many experiences when you were there. So for those of you watching, Sarah and I are friends. We've known each other for a couple of years now, so I've had kind of gotten to enjoy, secondhand all of these conversations about her adventures in Alaska before. So not everything got into the book, but there, like the moment in Tourist Attraction with the chainsaw, that kind of reminded me of maybe one of your Bob moments, if you might want to talk about that. Yes.
So yeah, Melanie was one of the first people that I told when I came back, and I was like, hey, guess what? We did this too stupid to live situation.
Oh my
So we go out there and we're doing research, and the book that I was writing at the time was set in Anchorage. So most of what I had planned on looking into was in Anchorage. So it was right at the start of tourist season, so there wasn't a lot out there, and not a lot of people on the excursions. We do a four-wheeler excursion, and me and my friends show up to this this park, and it's beautiful. This is beautiful state park, I think. I don't think it was a national forest, it was a state park. And there's this guy with a big old, bulge in the front of his jacket, which he's carrying a gun, and he's in front of this huge, what are they called? I'm not even gonna get the word right. It's those boxes that they put on like trains, like cargo shipping containers. And he's like, all right, I'm gonna take you out into the woods into grizzly country. And
What?
we're like,
And you went?
And we're like, what did he say? He said, no, you're the first ones out this season, so we don't even know if the trails are going to be okay. And I looked at my friend and I said, I don't think this is a good idea. And she looked at me and she goes, will we get our money back? And I said, no. And she goes, well, we should go. And I'm like, okay, let's go.
I'm thinking, let's go have like wine back at the room.
So she takes a picture.
There are also pot brownies in this story, yes?
What?
Were there some brownies, special brownies? Were that in this?
No, we were straight sober doing this stupid stuff.
Oh my gosh.
But yeah, no, our safety, this is totally a too stupid to live story, but our safety was we took a picture and we said, this is Bob. We're going into the woods with him.
That's right. Okay. So,
oh my gosh.
Sarah, you have to share that picture later.
So we go on and so this 4-wheeling trip ends up in the tourist attraction, the first book of the Spring series. But so some of the fun stuff we saw while we were out there, driving, because it was really, really fun. But there were certain situations where we'd stop and he'd be like, yeah, this is grizzly country. And we just kind of look around and we're like, yeah, we're right here alone with you, dude. And then we finally hit the point where it's over and we're like, this is great. We're going to turn around and go back. And he said, yeah, we're going to hike down this hill to this waterfall to take pictures. And we're like, this is a horribly stupid idea. So then we did it.
Cherish is like, what is wrong with you?
No, lots of bad things. Like, I mean, it was
Dateline.
I know, but like
Dateline.
I have a picture of him hanging off of this tree, trying to get a good photo of my friend in front of this waterfall. And I'm just dying because I mean, it's not that I don't understand how dumb it was what we were doing. We were just doing it anyways because we were having fun. But
Bob. Yeah.
Oh, Bob. So that's where the Bob story is. I can't believe I just told like the whole world of that whole story.
So Elena, one of the listeners, Elena, was asking Sarah if there was an actual B&B with taxidermy squirrels in it.
So Mistletoe and Mr. Right, the second book, they show up on a date, their first date, Rick and Lana, and he's horrified to realize that this B&B is just completely filled head to toe with taxidermy squirrels dressed up for Christmas. And so every sort of Christmas scene you have, they're wearing the Christmas clothes. And no, it was not based on a real squirrel place. It was based on a little writing retreat I took by myself. Gosh, I don't remember when that was. That was like 2 years ago, maybe. And I got there and it was just like the creaky stairs you go up to your room and like the creaky hallway to get to your room and all like the dark paneling. And it was inspired by this scary like ranty.
So there is actually in the Chicagoland area, there is a pizza place that is loaded with taxidermy animals.
Oh,
lots, and including lots
like
of squirrels.
You eat while you're eating. They're all around you.
Oh yeah, they're everywhere.
Oh no.
Yes, Bill's Pub. There is yes, there. I will take pictures sometime.
And this was a storm, and this was one bed, forced proximity. But if you like some taxidermy with some then my books are for you.
Now that's a blurb you don't hear very often.
You want the taxidermy?
Forced proximity taxidermy.
So Priscilla, for you, I'm assuming no taxidermy squirrels in Key West, but as far as the feel of Key West, the sense that you wanted to give your reader, can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Sure. I mean, I think for me, when I think of Key West, it's welcoming. It's the the humid breezes, lush vegetation, the beaches, they're not like big wavy beaches because of the coral reef that's around. But there are a lot of sandbars, so like at Smathers, you could like wait out, and hang out at the sandbar. They're great if you're down at Mallory Square. There, you could take the Fury is a catamaran that will at sunset will take you out to go snorkel the reef, and then you come back in, and while you're coming back in, it's sunset. So I really just wanted to, for me, Key West, it's all of that maybe a lot of tourists think about, but it's also home. And so I really wanted to try to capture that feel of the locals that live there, and that small island, feel that there is that like community. We say comunidad, so like my mom's going to know what's going on, what I'm doing, because someone else's mom is gonna see me, when you're out and about, that kind of thing. And so I wanted to, like with Island Affair, kind of like an homage to come and visit and and welcome to Key West. At the same time, I think in both of the books, since I have to make sure, like, wait, did Luis say that or did Ana Maria say that? But there's like a time where they both recognize that how lucky they are to be able to live there. I have a friend who stayed in Key West, and she came up to UF for college, but then she's a high school teacher. And so she talks about how lucky she feels. She just gets on her moped and rides to work, and in the summer she's got a little boat and she's got the summers off, and she's, just hanging out and, and doing island life things. And so that's kind of what I wanted to capture. Yes, the romance of the fake relationship, and they've got like 1 week and there is one bed, right? That, those kind of tropey things. But also, I think with all of my books, I hope that readers finish feeling like a sense of warmth and welcoming and familia, and like that they've made new friends. And so I also hope, like, for those people who have been to Key West, I hope they read the books and it evokes their own memories. And for those who have not been, I hope they feel like they've just spent time in Key West, like their toes in the sand and the sun, the sunset and that kind of thing. So that's my hope for it.
So, whenever you in real life, when a vacation is over and you're headed home, there's always kind of like that post-vacation blues, like kind of like the drop down afterwards, the wah-wah. So, and I think that kind of can happen with a book too, where you kind of like, the book is done, it's out of your hands, and kind of, so was there anything, and I know you have a series, so you have the opportunity to go back in and grab something you might have missed, Priscilla, but was there anything in the first one that you were hoping to kind of squeeze in that you just couldn't make it, or was there something that you had to cut about Key West, or a scene that kind of gives us some scenery that you had to let go of?
That's a hard one, because I feel like when you're writing the series, so even when I finished book 1 and I sent it away, right, when I got it back for revisions, I was already starting to work on book 2, right? So if you think of something that you forget, like, you still have some time to kind of get it in there. So that helps. But I don't think there's anything that I didn't get in. I think if anything, I worried, I didn't want book 1 to wind up being like, my God, this is like a 300-page travel brochure, right? With a little kissy. But so I didn't want that to. So I
actually,
hope that
right now, with not being able to travel, that sounds awesome. Right?
So I don't think so. There's not anything that there's always something else you want to talk about. I do have I envisioned a 3rd book in the series, but I'm not. Enrique's story is simmering because I signed a different contract, so I'm actually writing a series that takes place in San Antonio. And I just keep telling myself I want to tell Enrique's story, like he deserves to have his story, but right now he would also tell me, girl, I'm not ready to settle down. So Enrique's story is simmering, and it will come at some point. So if I think of anything that I kind of wasn't able to get in there, then I'll drop
That's
it in
always
his.
good. You can kind of keep that for like that little kind of collection. All writers, we all have those little boxes all over the place where stuff gets sprinkled in.
Yeah.
What about you, Angie? Was there anything about the islands or about your experiences there that didn't make it into the book that you wish had?
Well, yes, actually. So I mean, like in Shipped, there, Henley and Graham have a lot of really, really wonderful experiences. One of my favorites is they're going snorkeling, and they end up snorkeling with some really adorable marine wildlife. I don't want to give away any spoilers, but it's a really awesome scene. And the one thing that I could not work into the book that I wish I could have is I wanted to have them snorkel with penguins. There are, in fact, penguins in the Galapagos. Fun fact. So whenever you're out, like, you know, at your local bar in like 6 months from now when things open back up for trivia night, is ever a point of trivia like where is the farthest north that penguins live? Is actually the equator. It's bananas. Like there's a couple dozen breeding pairs of these endangered, like adorable little Galapagos penguins.
Aw.
And when I was there, I was snorkeling outside of, I think, Bartolome Island, and I'm like, you know, going along. I'm a beginner snorkeler. I kind of had that in common with Henley, my main character, who was afraid to go snorkeling. She had had a bad drowning experience as a child, and I had had one as well, very much patterned after my own life. But I like overcame that fear when I went there. I'm like, I'm going to learn how to snorkel. So I'm like paddling along with my janky little underwater camera, and I'm like, look at all these little fish. Oh my gosh, there's this big school little fish, like little sardines. And all of a sudden, like, there's a penguin. I'm like, oh my God, there's a penguin like 2 feet away from me. This is crazy. And then here's another penguin. It was insane. I mean, it was like out of National Geographic. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And like one like swam right underneath me. And I have this crazy video, and I'm like so focused on the penguin. I'm like going under, and there's like water going down my snorkel. Yeah, I'm like, oh my God. And it like pops his head up out of the water. It was crazy. I mean, so that was like a very amazing personal experience I had, that I'm like, I really want Henley and Graham to snorkel with penguins, but they already had this other like really poignant snorkeling experience. And I you know, I suppose you can have
Can't be all snorkeling.
Yeah. Right. So I'm like, oh, it wouldn't serve to like, you know, propel the story forward in a meaningful way. It would just be like, cute penguins.
I know, it's one of those, it's one of those darlings. Well, I think your readers would love to have an extra snorkeling scene as a bonus.
Yes,
you know,
that's what I was just going to say. Bonus material, like a newsletter.
So Anne-Marie, how about you? Anything that you had hoped to include or wanted to include that just didn't make it in?
I didn't really have any scenes that got cut, but I've had a lot of requests since the book came out that people would like to see more of Lucas's sister Sophie, or get her own book.
Ooh.
Because everybody wants to know if the fire station bookstore, she runs a bookstore called Blazing Books. It's in an old firehouse. And people are like, is that a real place somewhere?
It is in Colorado. There is.
Is there? Okay, well, mine was
Colorado. That's in an old firehouse. Yeah.
That was just out of my mind. I mean, like the pole is still in there, you know, and everything is pretty much still a firehouse. So people were like, oh, we'd like to go there. I'm like, I'll now I know I can tell them they can go to Colorado. This one I made up. But yeah, I think I'd like to go back to the island and explore some of the other characters. I mean, the other island, the people on the island, have Sophie get her story. Right now, there's not any plans for that. The rest of the series, they're not interconnected books. So the next two, they're other hashtag holidays, we call them, like, you know, those Instagram holidays that everyone posts with the hashtags. They're kind of based on those. But, you know, who knows? Maybe we can go back and.
Right. Once you create a place and create a group of people, you kind of love them and don't want to leave them, which is why it's so exciting, Sarah, that you have some news for us about Moose Springs. We get to see more, because Enjoy the View just came out on Tuesday, and that was the third book in the series. And as far as we knew, the last, but not anymore.
Not anymore. No, I was just thinking that's what I'm really excited about was, you know, I wrote 3 books in the series, and Easton, our sexy Hagrid in Enjoy the View, he has a twin sister who is a helicopter pilot in Alaska.
Ooh.
And I want to tell you, she is the person I wanted the story of the most. So I'm so glad you get to get this extra book.
Thank you. I'm super excited to write about her. So I'm going to be writing about Ash and Killian. I'm really excited about them too. So I'm really looking forward to being able to, you know, dive into, because of what her job is, you know, it's going to take them in and out of Moose Springs a lot more. It's not just going to be just in the town or with Enjoy the View, mostly on a mountain. It's going to be in town, out of town, back and forth, and get to see more places, smaller little towns in Alaska.
So getting to see more of Alaska. That's pretty cool. That's exciting.
I'm really excited.
And then if you want to let us know the other part of your good news, we give a little.
Yeah, I'm really excited that we also have a series coming out after the fourth Moose Springs book. I think that's the order they're going in, is one more Moose Springs book. And then my next series is called Parked, which is a Schitt's Creek meets the Colorado, rugged Colorado outdoors. And I'm really, really, really excited about Parked.
Yeah, it's just very exciting. So congratulations. And I wanted to go over to Cherish. And you spent, like Anna said, an entire month in Ireland. So you can't really pack all those experiences into one book. Was there anything that you wish you were able to get a chance to include or didn't get to include? Something that you...
You know, I wrote this novel as a NaNoWriMo novel. And by the time I edited it for an agent and then edited it for Harlequin and did all of the edits, I was just done with it. And I was like, I don't want to look at this shit anymore. But upon reading it later on, I was like, oh man, I wish I had included like a few more around town experiences that the couple could have had together, like, you know, tromping through the fields together and maybe getting caught in a bog. I don't know. So again,
like, you know, maybe write a few of these little tidbits. Like, if I'd sign up for a newsletter, if I I mean, that would be so fun, just like little jaunts around town. But I totally get that sense of like, oh, the wanting. And that's like how you feel on vacation too. Like, if you didn't get to do all the things you wanted to do and you wished you could have had a chance to, you know, spend longer here or doing more of whatever. Do you think you'd write another book set in Ireland?
Ooh, I would love to. I mean, it would be different characters.
Sure.
I accidentally wrote myself into, this is before I knew anything about series. And so I set myself up with this one hero who had, like, I don't know, a dozen siblings, and they were all married. And
but there's always cousins. There's always cousins. Yes, because I will say my Match to Perfection series was 3 sisters, and and then Kensington asked if I wanted to write a holiday novella set in their world, and I realized I don't mention any friends or anything. Like, my sisters are boring. They just hang out with each other. But they're Latina, so a cousin came to Chicago from Puerto Rico, and there you go. So all of those siblings could have cousins.
Maybe, yeah.
So as far as, you know, not that you're working on that right now, but, you know, we could pin that for later. But can you tell me a little bit about what you are currently working on or what you've got coming out next?
Well, you know, if I didn't go to school for English, big mistake, I would have gone to school for anthropology, because studying people and customs and traditions and all of that, it's my bag outside of all of this. And so traveling has just like fulfilled my soul in so many ways. And my husband and I are lucky to live in Sweden, so we're like closer to all the countries that we want to go. In Sweden, I've been able to explore Stockholm and Gothenburg, and, you know, Estonia and Finland and all them places. The book that I'm currently working on, that I'm getting edited and all that stuff, is a jewelry heist that takes place in Stockholm.
I'm all about the jewelry heist right now after watching Lupin. So.
I know, which means I need to hurry up. So
yeah,
starts off in America, in New York City, and ends up in Stockholm, you know, stealing a fancy ass tiara.
Awesome. Like, Julia, I'm in. Like, it's Julia Heist in Stockholm. Let's go. So that's what you're working on next. Angie, what are you working on right now? What you've got coming out next, or in the process?
So I'm working on my next romantic comedy for Gallery Books, and it's coming out next summer. So summer 2022 takes place quite a bit closer to home, takes place in Ohio. So maybe not as exciting as the Galapagos.
That's a Galapagos.
But
Different animals.
Well, yes. Yeah, mostly squirrels and deer. Yeah, but it follows a 25-year-old law school graduate, and she ends up in a coma after an accident. And while she's in this coma, she dreams of this boyfriend who doesn't actually exist. So she wakes up from this coma and she's asking for this guy who's not really real. So a year later, she's moving on with her life. She's moving in with her good friend into a Victorian house in Ohio City. And she gets a job at a local restaurant, and she's going down the street one day, and oh my gosh, she sees him. And so then she has.
Well, we're all hooked now,
Right?
We're like,
yeah. So it's like, dun,
Yes.
dun,
Keep
dun.
talking.
What? So yeah, she figures out like he and his younger brother run this flower shop in Ohio City, like second, third generation flower shop. And she gets to know him, and she's trying to figure out like, oh my gosh, how do I actually know real things about you? And he's never actually met her. They've never met each other in real life.
Woo!
So it's been really fun working on that. That's coming out
That
next.
sounds really cool.
Yeah.
You need any beta readers? We'd like to all
Yeah.
volunteer.
Yeah. Yeah, we're signing up.
Yes.
So Anne-Marie, you said that the next books in this series are based on like other Instagram-y holidays. So what's cooking right now?
So the one that I just finished writing is called Leap Day, and it's about an American tourist who goes on a trip to Dublin, and she ends up going because she was supposed to go on the trip with her boyfriend. He broke up with her, and she's basically like, I've never gone anywhere, and this is already paid for. It's kind of like what Cherish is talking about. So she goes on the trip anyways. Awkward moment, like it was for his business trip, so he's there too, but she's just like, oh well, I'm going. So really awkward flight to Ireland, right? While she's there for her 4 days alone, she's exploring. She meets a lovely Irishman on he's a tour guide when she's going through Kilmainham jail, and he invites her to come for her last night to see his band play. And while she's there, she tries Irish whiskey, like way too much Irish whiskey, and it's Leap Day, and she watches somebody propose, because Leap Day in Ireland, the women propose to the men, and then guess who wakes up married? Because the one night he decided to like,
So it's the wakes up married.
it's the wakes up married, and then
Oh my goodness, in Ireland.
in Ireland, and she's got to go home the next day. So that's our
you're
setup.
never gonna get that divorce on time.
I know. Right? And the third one, and so that'll be January. That'll be a year from now. That'll be January 2022. And then the third one is Boyfriend Day, and that one I don't even know yet what that.
Don't you worry about that. That's future Anne-Marie's problem. You've got plenty of
that right now.
And Sarah, we talked a little bit. We kind of already talked about what you've got going on with the next Moose Springs book and Parked. And Priscilla, you mentioned something about San Antonio.
Yes, I have a 2-book series that'll be coming out with Montlake, and it's set for like summertime. We don't have like a specific, like if it's May, June, but we're looking at summer of 2022. So the 2-book series is about a group of foster sisters in San Antonio, where my dad's from, and they are a mariachi band. And so both of the books are kind of loosely based or inspired by Shakespeare. So book 1 is kind of a Romeo and Juliet, and there's a battle of the mariachi bands. And so Mariana and her sisters are in a band, and then Angelo is in another band. And they're like feuding bands, but the feud actually goes back to the patriarchs of the family. So there's a little bit about gentrification that's happening, and both families are on opposite sides of that line. So that book 1 is called West Side Love Story.
Oh my goodness.
I'm working on right
Anytime you bring in Shakespeare, you already have me hooked. And when it's a spin like that, as a high school English teacher, I'm like, give me. Like any way to kind of like, that sounds so fun. So it, like the Capulets and the Montagues are like 2 different mariachi bands. Is that what's
Yes. So they're the Monteros and the Campos are who
awesome.
they are. So.
And that's coming out
clever.
next year?
Mm-hmm. So like summer 2022.
Exciting, very exciting. I want to make sure I made sure I got everyone what they're working on next. There was at least one question in the chat. Danielle wanted to know if we could pick a place to go for a writing retreat, where would we go? Like, I already said Ireland. I would like to go to this village that Cherish has described and stay there and go to the pub every night. But so Cherish, where would you go for a writing retreat?
I'm going right back to Tully Cross because the cabin, the cottage
we'll
that I stayed
we'll have little cottages opposite each other.
Oh no, the cottage that I stayed in had like several bedrooms that would fit all of us, and so
Yes, let's do
it's upwards to 7 people. Yeah,
That's a good number.
I like it. So, so Angie, besides joining us on this trip to Ireland to this cottage, where else would you want to go for your own writing retreat?
Gosh, that's such a good question. I mean, basically anywhere outside my house sounds really great right
Yes, right now, yeah.
Yes.
No, I'd settle
Not
for
my
Starbucks.
backyard.
Yeah, like even like Starbucks, awesome. That'd be great. No, there's I had the good fortune to travel to Alaska, actually, Zero, last year. I flew into Juneau and went down to Sitka, and there's this lighthouse in Sitka. It's on this little island, and you can like rent it out. And I follow it on Instagram. I'm obsessed. I want to go on a writing retreat and this lighthouse in Sitka, Alaska. It looks gorgeous.
So my
you have to be
father-in-law
in
was
charge
in the
of
army,
anything?
so we're able to stay in different lighthouses around the U.S. And so there's like some kind of program that military families can stay in certain places. So we would stay in this lighthouse, and it's like right off Lake Michigan,
Wow.
like so beautiful. So I can't just go there by myself for a writing retreat unless I bring my father-in-law with me, which would kind of kill the buzz.
I was gonna ask, do you have to be in charge of like lighting things? Or-
No.
Oh.
Not
Okay.
really, the one that we stay at, it's by itself now.
Like a
Like it used to be the lighthouse keeper's cottage, but it isn't anymore.
Okay.
Wow, how cool.
That would be like the least relaxing writing
Yeah.
retreat if you're
I
worrying
know,
about
I'd be
ships
like,
crashing
Put
into
away
the
the
shore.
Prosecco. Yeah, no Prosecco.
Like I got my
I
words
can't be
in, but
responsible.
People are in
Oh
the
my God.
water.
Sarah, where are you going for your writing retreat?
I miss Colorado. We were in Colorado 2018 for quite a while, and I loved it. So I really, really want to go to Estes Park and go up there and stare at the mountains and ride up there.
Nice.
Anne-Marie?
Well, I'd have to go somewhere where there weren't too many distractions, like that I'd want to go out and like do things too much during the day. I just got back from Gatlinburg, Tennessee, like 2 weeks ago, and beautiful mountain view, heated porch, so you could sit out there even in the winter. That would be a nice kind of a venue because you could go for a hike, but it's not like, some European city is beckoning you to come and explore instead of write. And I don't know if I could go with a group because I can't even handle going with Janet Aston to Starbucks. We end up not writing. Or I go with Jen Bailey to Panera and we're talking and not writing. Like, I don't know if I could go with anybody on a writer's retreat. I might have to be in isolation.
That's what I did. So for the book that's coming out this summer for me, which is a travel book in the sense that they go to a resort that lets people live out their rom-com fantasies. But I was so stuck on this book, I couldn't write it. So I went to this tiny little, basically a shack. It was like a little one-room cabin off of the lake and stayed there for a week by myself. Didn't see anyone except one frozen possum.
Oh my God.
Oh no.
And actually that's a good transition because I just got my ARCs in. This is Too Good to Be Real.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and so this is
That's beautiful.
they get to, so they're going to kind of like Fantasy Island, like in a resort, like if you wanted to live out your rom-com fantasies. And so I'm going to pick a viewer tonight to win an ARC, and I'll sign it. So we are so unprofessional here at Love Sweet Arrow, like the Boozy Book Broads. I just close my eyes and like roll my finger down the list of comments. So let's see here. PJ, you are getting this. Congratulations.
Ooh,
I have heard that it has
Congratulations,
the funniest seagull in that book.
So yes, there is a kleptomaniac seagull
oh my gosh.
who causes some trouble. And and actually when I was in that little shack off of the lake, in the middle of January. When I looked out, and I can post a picture of
God,
this, I'm
pretty
not lying.
creepy.
When I looked out the window, there was a seagull perched on like a lamppost, and he just sat there and stared at me like all day. So and I'd already had planned to write about a seagull, but at that point I'm like, okay, it's a sign to keep the seagull.
Seagulls.
Yes.
Oh, cool.
Seagulls are the jocks of the bird world. I don't like them.
They have some attitude. They do.
I'm like, don't feed them at the beach because
No. Oh God, no.
no.
So
Think of them in Finding Nemo now, right?
there's
Right.
there's a lot of seagulls around Lake Michigan, and when my daughter, she's a teenager now, but when she was little, she was convinced that they were laughing at her, that they were mocking her. And
Probably. Yeah.
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I'm so glad to have all of you here tonight. And for those of you watching, please, you can buy all of their books on the Love Sweet Arrow website, and you can check out, what else is coming up on Love Sweet Arrow. We have coming up, this is so amazing, we have Miss Bev herself, Beverly Jenkins, will be coming on Tuesday, February 9th to celebrate her latest release, Wild Rain. So don't miss out on that. You want to be there. I know.
Right.
It's going to be amazing. And you can purchase a signed copy through their website. So make sure you do that. And then coming up for Valentine's Day, there's another event. So make sure there's a lot of events coming up. There's an event with Suleika Snyder, a paranormal event and Maria Vale is going to be part of it. So some really cool events coming up. So make sure you check out the Love Sweet Arrow website to see all the different events that are coming up. And thank you everyone who participated in the chat tonight. And I see some hands.
Yes.
So Cherish, what do you want to say?
I think Anne Marie is first.
No,
you were raising your hand for Anne Marie. Okay,
Thank you.
I'll call Anne Marie now.
I just wanted to give a shout out to Love Sweet Arrow and let anybody know that if you are interested in ordering a print copy, I went there last weekend and signed a bunch of them. So they have signed stock there.
I guess
Sweet.
I'll go after Cherish.
Okay.
I feel foolish because I actually have a book coming out on February 19th.
Okay.
That I
Do you have it?
totally
The Trust Fall book?
Yes.
Yes,
Trust
tell us about your
Falling
book.
for
Yes,
You.
go for it.
Real quick, real
Yeah.
quick. It's just
Please do.
academics in Chicago in a fictitious private university who are enemies to lovers, going to Wisconsin for a team building retreat. And there's
when you
one...
first posted about this book, I was so curious because I live in the Chicago area, and my daughter's school sends them to Wisconsin for team building stuff. Like there are these middle schoolers are there for a week, like doing ropes courses and things like that. So I'm very excited to read your book. What is the name?
What's the title?
Trust Falling for You.
Trust Falling for You. And February 19th?
Yes.
February 19th.
Team building nonsense, terrible games that academics of Generation X have to play seriously without any cynicism. And there's a bear in the woods that frightens the couple. It's a whole to-do. Just know that it's light and fluffy and they get together and it's happily ever after and all that. So February 19th. Sorry.
Perfect.
No, plug away.
This is it. Yeah. So this is kind of like, in Boothby Book Broads, we call this last call. So last call. Yes. Is there anything else?
I would say I'm gearing up. Actually, we were exchanging emails this week, but at Love Sweet Arrow, we're getting ready to start a pre-order campaign for Anchored Hearts. And so if you pre-order from Anchored Hearts, it'll come with your copy will come with a signed book plate. And we also have 2 special recipes in Anchored Hearts. The hero Alejandro, his dad has a Cuban restaurant called Miranda's. That's their last name. And so we have two recipe cards that'll come that are 2 meals that are featured in Anchored Hearts. It's Alejandro's favorite meal and Ana Maria's favorite meal at the restaurant. So you'll get the 2 recipe cards and a signed book plate to go if you pre-order Anchored Hearts from Love Sweet Arrow.
Nice. All right. Well, thank you again so much. I hope you've enjoyed our little trip today on Destination Romance. And everyone who's been watching, have a good evening. And I don't have to tell you safe trip home because you're all home right now.
You should be.
you.
Thanks for coming.